Morbidly wholesome. In 2014, Cristiano Ronaldo was asked to donate his cleats for a charity auction. The fundraiser was benefiting a young boy with a rare brain disease that caused up to 30 seizures per day. Instead, Ronaldo donated $83,000 to cover the entire operation and still gave the boy his cleats. Kendrick Castillo was not forgotten by his classmates after he died stopping a Colorado school shooter in 2019. This girl's mother passed away when she was 3 months old, and they don't have any pictures together, so an artist made this for her. On 9/11, more than 500,000 people were left stranded due to the closure of all bridges and tunnels in the city. In an amazing feat called the 9/11 boat lift, citizen boat owners managed to rescue and evacuate all 500,000 people from Manhattan Island. Tom Block is a U.S. Army veteran who took a suicide vest to the face during a mission in Afghanistan. After countless surgeries and learning how to walk again, he is now helping federal law enforcement hunt down pedophiles. He hopes that one day the Captain America shield in his eye will be a symbol that children are safe. A cafe in Japan is hiring paralyzed people to control robot servers so that they can still make an income. An 8-year-old girl once found a 4-leaf clover and gave it to her daddy for good luck. When her father died, she found out he'd been keeping it in his pocket every day for 20 years. When the story of a 5-year-old boy fighting a rare type of cancer went viral in the UK, nearly 5,000 people stood in line for hours in the rain to see if they could be a stem cell donor. Eventually, they found one person who was the perfect match. Morbid Facts. Described by the media as the world's worst serial killer, Luis Garavito is responsible for the rape and murder of over 100 young boys. After a total of only 22 years served, he will be released from Colombian prison this year. After teenager Amy Billig disappeared in 1974, her mother began receiving phone calls from a man claiming Amy was serving as his slave. The chilling calls continued for more than 20 years, but the case was never solved. In 1933, a doctor named Carl Tanzler raided the grave of a female patient with whom he'd become obsessed before she died. He stole her body from the tomb and lived with her corpse for 7 years. As her body fell apart, he attached the bones together using coat hangers and fitted her face with glass eyes. He was only caught when someone saw him dancing with the corpse in front of an open window. When Pablo Picasso died in 1973, his wife wouldn't allow their grandson Pablito attend the funeral. Little Pablito responded by drinking a bottle of bleach, which damaged his organs so badly that he couldn't eat anymore. After 3 months of suffering, he died. Lake Nyos in Cameroon periodically releases a cloud of invisible carbon dioxide that suffocates everything within a 16-mile radius. In 1986, 1,700 people and all of their livestock suddenly died without even understanding what was happening to them. In 1949, Timothy Evans was wrongly executed for murdering his wife and daughter. The actual murderer, John Christie, was a prosecution witness at Evans's trial. After Evans was executed, Christie went on to kill 4 more people. The government didn't acknowledge that Evans was innocent until 2004. Within the walls of Alcatraz, Al Capone's brain completely melted due to untreated neurosyphilis. It got to the point where he would throw his feces at the other inmates and was paroled early because he was deemed too much of a lost cause to be a threat. When he died at the age of 48, he had the mental capacity of a 12-year-old. While Charles Darwin is famous for his work on evolution, he also killed and tasted every species of animal that he discovered. As many as 3 U.S. presidents, as well as Abe Lincoln's son, likely died as a result of contaminated water in the White House. Until 1850, there was no sewage system, and a field of human excrement called night soil flowed freely into the water supply. This photo was taken by a paramedic in 2015 outside of a hospital in California. It shows an ER doctor who stepped outside to cry for a moment after losing a 19-year-old patient. Minutes later, he walked back in the building with his head held high and continued on to his next patient. In the 1940s, Mike the Chicken lived for 18 months after his head was axed off. He only died after choking on a kernel of corn. In 2010, Mexican singer Sergio Vega publicly denied a news report that he had been murdered. Hours later, he was murdered. A Massachusetts man named Kenny Waters was wrongly imprisoned for 18 years for murder. He was finally freed in 2001 after his high school dropout sister went to law school to prove his innocence. Just 6 months after he was released, he died in a freak accident. Lama Itigilov was a Buddhist said to have reached nirvana, the final goal of Buddhism. This is due to the lifelike state of his corpse, which is not subject to macroscopic decay even though he was never embalmed. He died in 1927, and upon the latest examination in 2005, scientists stated his body was in the condition of someone who had died just 36 hours ago. In 2009, an Indian doctor removed 172,000 kidney stones from a single kidney. Both the patient and surgeon now hold Guinness World Records that will hopefully never be broken. In 1961, Soviet doctor Leonid Rogozov was working in Antarctica when he realized he had appendicitis. He knew he would die if his appendix wasn't removed, but he was the only doctor on the expedition. So he ended up performing the surgery on himself and miraculously recovered. A girl who grew up in Auschwitz drew this picture of home while living in a residence for disturbed children. When Elvia Cortez went to feed her cows one morning, 4 men quickly approached her and put a bomb around her neck. They left a tape asking for $7,500 and threatened to set off the bomb if she tried to disarm it. Elvia called the police and a bomb tech showed up later in the day to remove it. A few hours later, the bomb suddenly went off and killed both of them, and the men responsible were never found. In 2016, an Indonesian pop star died on stage after she was bitten by the king cobra she was dancing with. She kept performing for 45 minutes before succumbing to the snake's venom. A German shepherd named Tolero stayed next to the body of his owner for 23 days after he had died in a snowstorm. He prevented animals from attacking the body and tried to keep his owner warm by sleeping by his side. In 1937, a gas leak in the basement of a school in Texas caused a massive explosion that killed 300 children. It was the deadliest school disaster in U.S. history and was so tragic that even Adolf Hitler sent his condolences. In 2003, a woman from Texas hit a homeless man with her car and his body became lodged in her windshield. She drove home with him still stuck in the car and repeatedly apologized to the man when he was in her garage. But she never called for help and the man died 2 days later as the woman received 50 years in prison. Dodo birds were very friendly and curious animals since they had no natural predators. And then we came along and killed them all. For animal testing involving dogs, most laboratories use beagles because they're the most forgiving of humans inflicting pain on them. In the 1920s, the federal government poisoned alcohol in an effort to curb consumption during Prohibition. As a result, more than 10,000 Americans died from poisoning by their own government. The owner of Ray's Sausages spent nearly $30,000 to combat the foul smell said to be coming from his shop. It was later discovered that the odors were actually coming from the rotting victims of his neighbor, serial killer Anthony Sowell. Replacement teeth were once made from the teeth of dead soldiers after they were scavenged from the battlefield. This is the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald sitting at the bottom of Lake Superior. The 700-foot freighter sank in 1975, taking the lives of all 29 men on board. The bodies were never recovered and are said to be well preserved even today due to the cold waters. Since 1946, the Russians believed they had a piece of Hitler's skull, serving as evidence that he died. But in the year 2000, it was discovered that the skull fragment had actually belonged to a middle-aged woman. These are some of the weirdest books in the world. Codex Gigas, aka the Devil's Bible, is the largest medieval book in the world, weighing in at 165 pounds. Its author is unknown, but it's estimated that it would have taken at least 30 years to complete. Legend tells that the scribe sold his soul to the devil so that he could write the book in one night. The Voynich manuscript is a 15th century codex of unknown origins. It features a mystery language and illustrations of plants that don't exist. Hundreds of codebreakers have attempted to decipher its meaning, but none have been successful. Codex Seraphinianus is a beautifully drawn encyclopedia of an unknown world. It's also written in a cryptic language as even the author himself can't decipher it. He claims that the real author was a possessed cat who telepathically guided his hands and thoughts. Weird crime facts. This is a photo of a New York City police officer coming face to face with a 350-pound tiger that was secretly living in a Harlem apartment. It took more than 6 men to carry the tiger into the elevator while he was sedated. In 1986, a French convict used oranges painted as grenades to escape from prison. He was picked up in a helicopter piloted by his wife, who had been taking flight lessons for months just for the escape. For decades, a female serial killer named the Phantom of Heilbronn was linked to more than 40 crimes. In 2009, it was discovered that she never existed and her DNA was simply contamination from the cotton swabs used at crime scenes. In 2010, 3 burglars thought they had found a stash of cocaine after breaking into a Florida woman's home. They ended up snorting the ashes of a man and his 2 Great Danes. In 2011, a Swedish man named Richard Handel was arrested for trying to split atoms in his kitchen. He was charged with unauthorized possession of nuclear materials, but said he just wanted to see if it was possible to split atoms at home. Russia's toughest prison uses Caucasian mountain shepherds as guard dogs. They weigh up to 200 pounds and are said to have the stopping power of a .45 caliber gun. In 2013, a man from China was ordered to pay a fine equivalent to $1,600 for a minor offense. In response, he paid in coins, which took a total of 18 employees working full days just to count. A Chicago man once bought a car for $600, registered it in his ex-girlfriend's name, and parked it at O'Hare Airport. The car then accumulated over $100,000 in parking tickets, which the city asked the ex-girlfriend to pay. There's a tree in Pakistan that has been chained and officially arrested since 1898. This happened when a drunk British officer thought the tree was moving toward him, so he ordered a sergeant to arrest it. In 2004, this woman from Georgia tried to use a fake $1 million bill to buy $2,000 worth of products from Walmart. She said she thought the bill was real and expected $998,000 in change. In 2008, an entire beach was stolen from a resort in Jamaica. No arrests were ever made, and 500 truckloads of sand remain missing to this day. 34-year-old Vladimir Sankin is facing 15 years in prison after beating a pedophile to death. He did this after learning that children were being lured to the pedophile's house before being given alcohol and forced to strip naked. In 1996, a man's body floated up to a boat in the UK seas. There was no identification on the body except for a 25-year-old Rolex Oyster on his wrist. As Rolex maintained such meticulous service records, they were able to identify the victim and ultimately the killer. On average, men receive 63% longer sentences than females for the exact same crime. Nigerian scammers once sold a fake airport to a major international bank for $242 million. The scam wasn't discovered until 3 years later. Portugal decriminalized all drugs 20 years ago and has viewed addiction as a public health crisis rather than a crime. Ever since then, Portugal has had one of the lowest percentages of drug addicts in all of Europe. In case you plan on visiting North Korea, some of these crazy laws might make you think twice. Prioritizing anything over Kim's family is considered blasphemy. A mother recently faced jail time for trying to save her children instead of a portrait of the former president during a fire. Watching porn or reading the Bible are both crimes punishable by death in North Korea. Kim Jong-un released a list of haircuts that people in the country are allowed to have. There are 28 state-approved hairstyles that people can keep, otherwise they can expect jail time. Citizens are also forbidden from having the same name as the current president. So when Kim Jong-un took office in 2012, everyone named Kim was forced to change their name. Falling asleep while Kim speaks will fetch you a serious capital punishment. In 2015, the former defense minister was executed with an anti-aircraft gun after doing so. But hey, they got legal weed, so I mean... Artifact porn. This 4,600-year-old Egyptian statue was made completely from wood other than the quartz and copper that make up its eyeballs. It's just one example of the incredible level of craftsmanship achieved during ancient times. These are the first ever drawings of the moon made by Galileo after observing it through his telescope in 1690. Here's a before and after of the excavation of an ancient Greek stadium located in modern-day Turkey. It was built around 1st century AD and once held a capacity of 30,000 people. This is the impressive flexibility of a Swedish knight Sabaton from 1560. This is a watch that once belonged to a Japanese man named Akito Kawagoe. It's permanently stopped at 8:15 since that was the exact time the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. This incredibly detailed sculpture was created by Antonio Carradini in 1752. It's a depiction of his mother wearing a weightless veil and was carved completely from a block of marble. The incredible dental work on this 4,000-year-old Egyptian mummy shows how advanced they were in the field of dentistry. These taxidermied frogs were found inside of an old French mansion that had been sealed for more than 100 years. It took Italian archaeologist Italo Gismondi 36 years to build this insanely accurate scale model of ancient Rome. This is a photo of archaeologists uncovering a mosaic in Turkey that remained untouched for 2,000 years. These handprints can be found on the walls of Pedikir Cave in Indonesia. This artwork is estimated to be roughly 40,000 years old. Here are some of the craziest things that were discovered by accident. In 1965, a Ukrainian farmer dug up the lower jawbone of a mammoth. Further excavations revealed 4 huts that were made completely out of mammoth bones. They're estimated to be around 15,000 years old. This 110-million-year-old nodosaur fossil is so well preserved that many scientists refer to it as a mummy. It was accidentally discovered by miners in Canada who initially thought it was just a weird rock formation. These heart-shaped amethyst geodes were discovered just a few months ago by a mining company in Uruguay. A group of archaeologists discovered this massive claw while digging down in a cave in New Zealand. Turns out it was the 3,300-year-old claw of a moa bird which went extinct centuries ago. Weird nature facts. Found in Sri Lanka, this male adult elephant was the first scientific record of dwarfism in the wild. He measures at just over 5 feet in height. Believe it or not, but crocodiles are more closely related to birds than they are to lizards. The Zolo is an ancient Aztec dog breed native to Mexico. They were once considered to be guide dogs for dead people entering the underworld. This giant rock in Finland has been resting perfectly on a curved surface for over 8,000 years. Sperm whales are the largest toothed predator on the planet but lack teeth in their upper jaw. Instead, they have tooth pockets that encompass the teeth of their lower jaw. The assassin bug wears the corpses of its prey like a backpack. After stabbing its prey and slurping out the innards, the insect uses the corpses as armor and camouflage. If you ever see a kangaroo standing in the water like this, you should get out of there immediately. He's likely waiting for a pursuer to join him in the water so that he can drown it. It was developed as a defense mechanism against dingoes, but has been performed on innocent household dogs. This skull-faced caterpillar is the larva of the pink underwing moth. It can be found in the rainforests of Australia. This cow escaped from a Polish farm and was found months later living with a herd of wild bison. A few years ago, there was a global search to find a mate for Jeremy, a snail with a rare genetic deformity. Because his shell coiled counterclockwise, the opposite of what's typical for snails, his sex organs couldn't align with any others. 2 candidates were eventually found, but they proceeded to mate with each other instead of poor Jeremy. Paintings with disturbing backstories. This painting was created by Maria Farmer, the first victim to speak out against Jeffrey Epstein. She claims this is an FBI diagram of the circle of connections to Epstein. It features people like the Clintons, Bill Gates, and the Rothschilds, and depicts Ghislaine Maxwell as a bloodthirsty reptile. Artist William Udermolen was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in 1995. Over the next 5 years, he drew these self-portraits of himself, which display the devastating effects of the disease. This was painted by serial killer John Wayne Gacy, aka the Killer Clown, while in prison. It depicts him as Snow White and expresses the strange obsession he had with the 7 dwarves. President FDR was having a portrait painted of himself when he suffered a stroke. He died later that day, and this unfinished portrait captured his final waking moments. Weird war facts. In 1932, Australia declared war on about 20,000 emus that were destroying farmland. While a number of birds were killed, the emu population persisted and ended up winning the war. Switzerland's military has remained neutral since 1815, but the entire country is rigged to explode. Thousands of demolition points are wired into bridges, highways, and railroads across the nation to quickly halt invaders. During World War II, German tank drivers in Africa would drive over camel poop for good luck. The Allies caught wind of this and responded by planting landmines disguised as camel poop. Once the Germans realized this, they began running over piles that already had tire tracks over them. In turn, the Allies made mines that looked like overrun camel poo. These are some of the weirdest cemeteries in the world. It's illegal to be buried in Longyearbyen, Norway. The town's only graveyard closed over 70 years ago because it's so cold there that the bodies never decomposed. And some still carry traces of the Spanish flu. While it looks like a city, this is actually the largest cemetery in the world, located in Iraq. Graveyards can be boring for kids, which is why they built a playground at Alabama's Maple Hill Cemetery. But as most people expected, it didn't get much use because it's insanely creepy and is known today as Dead Children's Playground. Upon first glance, this cemetery in Maine looks like two pictures put together. This cemetery in New Haven, Connecticut was once part of an outdoor graveyard in the center of town. But eventually a church was built over the cemetery and the graves have resided untouched in the basement since the 1800s.